I'm taking a little bit of a closer look at one of the chloralkali cells. Now, the one that I'm focusing my specific experiment on this evening is the asbestos cell. This is no longer in use, but one of the things which I wanted to show you was that we can actually physically see the three products being made. Let's just remind ourselves what that cell entitles. So we've got a cell which is now divided by this porous asbestos membrane. Now just remember, if they ask you in an exam why this is no longer used, it's because asbestos is very, very poisonous, right? It causes cancer of the lungs, right? Very not nice. So what I've chosen is I've used a little bit of filter paper because I'm not that fond of getting hurt by my experiments. So we're going to take our porous membrane and we're going to put 2 electrodes. Now remember that electrodes are something which carries the current into an electrolytic cell. Okay, so let's take a look at our 2 electrodes and predict what the products would be again. So I'm going to apply a plus, and I want you to watch a little bit carefully what's going to happen there, and a minus, and we're going to see which is going to be produced at which. Now remember that I start off with sodium chloride and I start off with some water. Now remember that sodium was our spectator ion. One of my products is going to be produced as chlorine gas, so I should see bubbling at the one electrode and I should see hydrogen at the other electrode, plus there should be some sodium hydroxide. And one of the things which I've done to show up the sodium hydroxide is that I've put some universal indicator. So you should see a little bit of a green color, and when sodium hydroxide is produced, and we're going to see exactly where that happens, we're going to produce sodium hydroxide, and that's going to make a purple color. So you should see some bubbles at both, one hydrogen, one chlorine, and we're going to take our sodium hydroxide and find out exactly what's going on there. Okay, so let's turn our attention to our cell. Now our cell is going to have negative. Negative is going to be producing my hydrogen. So I'm expecting some hydrogen at the negative, right? And at the positive, what's going to happen is I'm going to attract the chloride ions, which are going to be changed into Cl2. And one of the other products in the hydrogen part is going to be sodium hydroxide. Okay, so I hope you can see what we're expecting. So one is going to produce some sort of color from the universal indicator, which is now green at the moment, which says that it's fairly neutral. And my hydrogen gas, so we should see some bubbles. At the other one, we should see another type of bubbling. And we're going to take a look and see. Now, if you do this experiment in class, you'll be able to smell the chlorine gas being produced. It smells nice and fresh and clean. Smells a little bit like bleach because bleach has got chlorine added to sodium hydroxide. That's one of the ways that you use chlorine. And it smells a little bit like pool chlorine, so you can smell that pool chemical smell. So we should be able to see both of these. So one should have bubbles with no change in color or a little bit of a change in color, maybe a little bit yellow. Right, that's because chlorine gas can produce an acid in solution. And the other side should go sort of a bluish color. Right, let's turn our attention to the experiment. Let's take a look at our divided cell. So what I've done here is I've divided the cell into 2 parts. So we've got our 2 electrodes on either side. You can see the green color from the universal indicator. What we're going to do is on my left, right, which is your right on the screen here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the negative. Right, on this side we're going to connect the positive, and we're going to see exactly what happens. So just give me a second or two. Let's connect our power supply and let's see what happens. It's a fairly instant sort of reaction. We should see color change happen almost immediately, and then we'll take a closer look and see exactly what's happened. So once we've connected a little bit of power, you should see some bubbles happening there. Right, I've got some bubbling here, and exactly as we expected, one side is changing sort of to a blue color, other side to sort of a yellowish color, sort of staying mostly green. But we can see a nice separation between the 2 sides here. So what I want you to notice is the blue side here, and on the other side we're getting the slight sort of yellowing color. So that's a very, very nice demonstration that we're getting our 2 products. I want you to notice the 2 gases, the bubbles that we're producing, and we're going to take a closer look at the redox involved in that. And we'd like you to think a little bit about that. How is hydrogen produced at one and how is chlorine produced at the other? So fantastic showing that we've got blue on the one side, meaning that we've got sodium hydroxide produced at our negative electrode. So remember, on the right of your screen, we've got the negative electrode, so that's blue and sodium hydroxide, and that gas produced is hydrogen. On the other side, I've got my chlorine gas. So that's produced at the positive electrode. So anode on your left side of your screen, cathode on the right, So I hope you can see, and that's demonstrated very, very nicely where the products are being produced. And what we're going to do is we're going to just quickly recap on our diagram. We're going to see exactly what's happened, and it's worked fantastically. Back to our diagram, we've got hydrogen and sodium hydroxide produced at the 1. So this is why it's called the chloralkali industry. Right, so your sodium hydroxide is the alkaline material in there. Right, that's used in soap manufacture, bleach manufacture. Right, chlorine is used in plastics. It's used in a variety of bleaches and cleaning products as well. So you can see that being produced in the yellow. So what happened? We had blue on the one side and we had yellow on the other side. The reason for that is because chlorine actually reacts with water to produce a slightly acidic solution. So remember that universal indicator. Blue means alkaline, yellow means acidic. So that's fantastic. I hope you've watched very, very carefully.